Dr. Ethan Carlisle is a highly respected surgeon who seems to have the perfect life. He is admired for his skill and dedication, but beneath the surface, his marriage to Claire is far from ideal. Claire is more focused on maintaining their social status than on their relationship, leading to emotional distance and constant tension. Ava Reynolds, a hard-working and ambitious nurse, has big dreams of making a difference in the medical field. She is kind, compassionate, and determined to prove herself in her demanding profession. Initially, Ava admires Ethan for his expertise and leadership, but over time, her respect for him begins to develop into something deeper. Ethan and Ava's professional relationship begins to deepen during long and exhausting shifts at the hospital. What starts as casual conversations about work gradually turns into more personal discussions. Ethan opens up about his unhappy marriage, describing himself as trapped in a loveless relationship and misunderstood by his wife, Claire. As Ethan shares his struggles, Ava finds herself empathizing with him. She begins to see a vulnerable side of the confident surgeon that others rarely notice. Despite her growing feelings, Ava is conflicted. She knows Ethan is married and feels a deep sense of guilt for being drawn to someone who isn't available, but she can't deny the connection forming between them. One night during a late shift, a moment of vulnerability brings Ethan and Ava closer than ever. What begins as a comforting gesture turns into an intimate encounter, crossing a line they can never undo. Both are shaken by what has happened, but convince themselves that it was a harmless mistake born out of stress and loneliness. However, the secrecy of their relationship only intensifies their bond. They start stealing moments together, exchanging glances that linger too long and conversations that feel more personal than professional. Ethan begins to show signs of possessiveness, wanting Ava's time and attention exclusively. This growing control hints at the darker side of their relationship, but Ava is too caught up in the intensity of it all to see the red flags clearly. Claire begins to notice subtle changes in Ethan's behavior. He becomes emotionally distant, spends more time at work, and seems preoccupied even when he is home. Her suspicions grow as she picks up on the tension in their interactions and the evasiveness in his answers. Meanwhile, Ethan starts to feel the weight of his secret with Ava. Paranoia sets in as he worries about Claire discovering the truth, causing him to act increasingly defensive and erratic. Ava, on the other hand, is overwhelmed by guilt. She begins to question her choices and the consequences of the relationship. Doubts creep in as she wonders if the connection she feels with Ethan is worth the risk of hurting others or herself. Ava's personal life starts to unravel as the affair with Ethan takes over her thoughts and energy. She becomes distant from her friends and struggles to maintain her focus at work. Once driven and composed nurse now feels trapped in a situation that seems to grow more complicated with every passing day. Desperate for clarity, Ava opens up to her close friend Megan, sharing the truth about her relationship with Ethan. Megan listens, but warns Ava about the dangers of being involved with a married man. She urges Ava to think about the long-term consequences, but Ava feels torn between her feelings for Ethan and the voice of reason. Ethan, sensing Ava's doubts, becomes more manipulative. He assures her that their love is unique and worth any sacrifice. He paints himself as the victim in his marriage and convinces Ava that they belong together, even if it means keeping their relationship hidden. The weight of his words makes Ava question her judgment, leaving her even more conflicted. Ava begins to notice troubling patterns in Ethan's behavior. She uncovers unsettling details about his past relationships, learning that he has a history of using charm and manipulation to control the women in his life. The realization leaves her feeling uneasy, but she struggles to confront him directly. As Ethan's controlling nature escalates, he becomes possessive and increasingly demanding of Ava's time and attention. His charm begins to wane, replaced by a darker, more oppressive side. Ava feels trapped, isolated from her friends, and overwhelmed by the weight of their secret. Meanwhile, Claire's suspicions deepen. Determined to uncover the truth, she hires a private investigator to follow Ethan. The investigator confirms her worst fears, presenting her with evidence of the affair. Furious and betrayed, Claire confronts Ethan in a heated argument, accusing him of destroying their marriage and tarnishing her trust. Ethan tries to dismiss her accusations, but the confrontation pushes their already strained relationship to the breaking point. Ethan becomes increasingly desperate as the pressure of his double life mounts. Fearing that Ava might expose their affair and ruin his carefully crafted reputation, he begins to see her as a threat that needs to be dealt with. His mind spirals into dark thoughts, and he starts devising a plan to ensure his secrets stay hidden at any cost. Ava, meanwhile, starts to sense the danger in Ethan's behavior. His possessiveness and paranoia have grown into something far more sinister, leaving her uneasy and afraid. Realizing the relationship has become toxic and unsafe, she decides to end it. She confides in Megan once more, begging for advice and support, but Megan warns Ava to be careful. Despite her plans to distance herself, Ava finds herself drawn into one last confrontation. The tension reaches its peak during a late-night shift at the hospital. Ethan confronts Ava in a secluded area, his anger and desperation boiling over. Ava, cornered and terrified, tries to reason with him, but his paranoia clouds his judgment. What began as a forbidden romance now spirals into a life-threatening encounter as Ethan's dark intentions come dangerously close to fruition. During a tense and emotionally charged confrontation in the hospital storage room, Ethan's desperation and anger spiral out of control. Ava tries to reason with him, pleading for an end to the relationship and a peaceful resolution. But Ethan's jealousy blinds him, and in a moment of overwhelming rage, he lashes out, leading to a tragic outcome. Realizing what he has done, Ethan panics and attempts to cover his tracks. He rearranges the scene to make it appear as a tragic accident, carefully trying to erase any evidence of foul play. Despite his efforts, inconsistencies in the scene, a misplaced object, Ava's injuries, and traces of his presence hint at a more sinister truth. Ethan's attempt to conceal his actions only sets the stage for the unraveling of his carefully maintained facade, as the cracks in his story begin to surface. Detective Laura Bennett takes charge of the investigation into Ava's death. From the start, she notices discrepancies in Ethan's account of the events that night. His calm demeanor and carefully rehearsed alibi seem too perfect, raising suspicions about his involvement. As Detective Bennett digs deeper, key evidence begins to surface. Ava's hidden journal reveals detailed accounts of her relationship with Ethan, exposing his controlling nature and the emotional turmoil she endured. Text messages between the two provide further proof of their secret affair and the growing tension between them in the weeks leading up to her death. Claire, devastated by the loss of trust in her husband, is approached by the detective. Though heartbroken, she chooses to cooperate with the investigation. Claire provides crucial information about Ethan's erratic behavior, his late nights, and the distance in their marriage, helping to build the case against him. As the pieces come together, the image of Ethan's carefully crafted life begins to crumble, and the truth of his actions becomes undeniable. Ethan is arrested and brought to trial, his once respected reputation now overshadowed by the dark truth of his actions. The courtroom becomes a stage for Ava's story, as her friends and colleagues come forward to testify. They recount the toxic relationship, sharing evidence of Ethan's manipulative behavior and the emotional toll it took on Ava. Claire, despite her heartbreak, takes the stand against her husband. Her testimony is a turning point in the trial, as she reveals Ethan's controlling tendencies, his history of infidelity, and the facade he carefully maintained to deceive everyone around him. Her courage in exposing the truth strikes a chord with the jury. The prosecution presents damning evidence, including Ava's journal, text messages, and the inconsistencies in Ethan's alibi. The defense tries to paint Ethan as misunderstood and the relationship as consensual, but the overwhelming evidence tells a different story. In the end, the court delivers a guilty verdict. Ethan is convicted of Ava's murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. The once admired surgeon is now a symbol of betrayal and abuse, his fall from grace serving as a stark reminder of the consequences of his actions. Ava's tragic death sends shockwaves through her community and beyond, sparking important conversations about workplace power dynamics and the dangers of abusive relationships. Her story becomes a powerful example of the need for greater awareness and accountability in professional and personal spaces. In her memory, Ava's friends and family establish a foundation dedicated to supporting victims of domestic violence and emotional abuse. The organization works to provide resources, counseling, and legal assistance to those in need, ensuring that Ava's legacy continues to make a difference. Meanwhile, Claire begins the painful process of rebuilding her life. Though devastated by the betrayal and loss, she finds strength in advocating for women who, like Ava, feel trapped in toxic relationships. Her work becomes a source of healing, as she uses her voice to shed light on the warning signs of manipulation and control. Through these efforts, Ava's story inspires change, helping countless others find hope and courage. Her life, though cut short, leaves a lasting impact, ensuring that her voice continues to be heard and her legacy lives on.